Thank you so much, Mr. Malik, for joining us. I'll quickly jump to the question. We are discussing this recent judicial activism, let's call it activism here, and the crisis that it is facing as well. Where do you think politicians are wrong? Because politicians keep on taking their matters to judiciary. Judiciary keeps on entertaining it, and this is how they overstep their own domains. Who is at fault here?
Number of issues that you're discussing. First of all, I think the society overall is extremely polarized. And that level of polarization is not limited to the political apparatus or to the politicians. I think is extended all the way into the judiciary as well. So if you look at recently over the past couple of years, if you look at how judiciary has shown its own fractures, how one set of judges have kind of said, I would say, pretty critical things about other set of judges in terms of how judges should behave, and they should not appear to be political actors or do political activism, so on and so forth. These things were not said by politicians. These things were said by honorable judges about each other. Similarly, you've seen many a times when judges have complained, whether it be Justice Siddiqui or the High Court judges more recently, they basically have also complained about various kinds of ingresses, and that conversation is also ongoing in the courts. As far as your second part of the question is concerned, I think you're absolutely right. I think that fracture is also, one has begun to see the same kind of polarization actually to a much larger extent amongst the political parties. So it's almost become impossible to have a reasonable, reasoned or fair conversation. We have, and obviously my view would be slightly biased and one-sided, but if you look over the past couple of years, you would see that Shahbaz Sharif, as the leader of the opposition during Imran Khan's administration, reached out and said, we'd like to do some kind of charter of economy with you. We'd like to sit with you and support your economic policies and try to create stability in the country. If you look at what Bilawal Bhutto Saab has been saying, you'd hear the same. He went out and said, Kadam badhao Imran Khan, hum tumhare saath hain. We are with you all the way, especially when the security of Pakistan comes into question. Even when Nawaz Sharif landed in Pakistan, he reached out and said, a lot has happened and I've gone through a lot of pain, but I would like to put all of that behind me in public interest and national interest, and I'd like to reach out to all political parties to have a dialogue. And he's been talking about the grand dialogue for a very long period of time, ever since I've gotten into politics. And then when, the gesture that the Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif made when he offered the Sunni Ittihad or PTI to come and form their government, and the gesture that People's Party simultaneously made and said, okay, if you think you're in majority, why don't you form the government? And then in his first speech, Shahbaz Sharif reached out again and said, we'd like to have dialogue. So in essence, I'm sorry, I've gone a little, overboard in giving you all of these examples. The point is that we're trying to reach out. And the reason why we're reaching out is because we want to depolarize. And the reason why we want to depolarize is because many a times when we are unable to have these conversations then go to judiciary. And when we invite judiciary into us...
But Mr. Malik, let me interject here. You need to move on yourself first in order to reach out to other people. It was just yesterday that Mr. Nawaz Sharif, your supreme leader, was again talking about the same stuff, and he was right about it. There is no other question about it that dismissing and disqualifying prime ministers and parliamentarians, this has become habit, I would say, in our judicial system. But you have to move on. We are still hearing there are audios and there are some stuff that he has off the previous Chief Justice. You have to move on. You have to go past that because you are in the government now. So if you are reaching out and you are sticking to the same rhetoric, how would you move on?
But the rhetoric is about the same thing. It's about doing truth and reconciliation. It's talking about all of the things things that we've done wrong. In his previous conversations, Mia Nawaz Sharif has started from Justice Munir and Malik Ghulam Mohammed. He's spoken about the shahadat or the judicial murder of Mr. Bhutto and the assassination or shahadat of Benazir. He's spoken about them getting thrown out, we getting thrown out. He's spoken about no prime minister ever finishing his term. He's spoken about the ingress of judiciary. He's spoken about the political parties playing cogs. He's saying, let's come out, let's talk about everything, not in the way of vendetta, but in the way of sitting together and moving forward. But we have to recognize what has happened over our political history. If we are unwilling to recognize what has happened over our political history, then how are we going to move forward?
Who exactly do you want to recognize? Who exactly are you pointing out?
We want to
the judges or the establishment?
No, everyone, every actor in the political history of Pakistan, including the politicians. Why let the politicians go free? Everyone should be brought forward. All the truth should come forward. We should put our heads together. We should resolve to move forward in our togetherness and sort out the affairs of the state. Think more about poverty, think more about unemployment, think more about the transparency in our political electoral process and our political processes so that we can move forward as a nation. We can only move forward if you shrug everything, if you brush everything under the carpet, then how are we going to move forward?
Thank you so much. Thanks once again for joining us.